Hello, everyone, and welcome in. Little technical difficulties, but we're here. We're live talking Georgia Tech football and a schedule release that happened earlier this afternoon. My name is Bryce Koon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow us on social media. Make sure, even if you want to, drop a dono in there so Ralph can get in his meals for the week. We're talking schedule release. It's going to be fun. Ralph, you need to go ahead and get ready because we're going to start this show off with a catchy tune, and we're just going to roll right into it. This is Swarm Talk with the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have a schedule in hand as we get ready for the 2024 season. My name is Bryce Koon. Thanks so much for tuning in. Sorry for the technical difficulties, the little bit of a lag. There is we got a new camera. Something was up with the camera. I had my blue light glasses on. Ralph, how do you feel about these? You see the reflection that you can see? It's a no-go for the show. No-go for the show. I wanted to start this one off by making sure that you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I know we've already got some comments in. Get your questions, get your comments in. And I just think overall, when we kind of look at this release, and Ralph, you can go and throw that first banner up there. The ACC has released the 2024 schedule in full. Like, we know exactly who is going to play who. We know when that's going to happen. And we have a pretty good idea, too, of honestly what you need to make for your ticket plans. A weird schedule. I will start it off with that. Like, this is a kind of a weird schedule for the ACC when you kind of look at all the different factors and everything. So I wanted to dive into it. Wanted to get your thoughts kind of on how you feel like the schedule is going to shake out. Going to be interesting because I threw this in the Discord and immediately, let's just start here. Immediately, Ralph, we'll go to instant reaction now because everyone knows the schedule's been released. The immediate thing was, well, let's Google records. Let's look at predictions. Let's let's look at different things and make sure that we have a chance here to kind of get in our predictions way early. I'm going to tell you this right now. Now, look, I'm going to say this. People aren't going to listen. They're going to take away from the show what they want to take away, and that's fine. That's okay. Listen, the fact of the matter is that sometimes people just do things because that's what they want to do. And so we're going to state this. It's way too early to make predictions. Way, way too early to start to try to make predictions on what this could look like, on what this record could look like, because, folks, we really don't even know, with Georgia Tech, with other programs, what the two deeps are going to be, much less what the 85 scholarship players are going to be. Firmly believe, especially with the news that Jim Harbaugh is, taking the Chargers job and moving on, that we're just going to have this crazy roster flux, even if Sharon Moore takes that job, which I think is already kind of rumored to be the front runner and the leader there. We're going to have some crazy roster information, some crazy kind of roster look at what is going to happen across the country. So I can't tell you for sure, hey, Georgia Tech's going to go into Syracuse, there in week 4 or whatever it is and win that football game. I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts on how the schedule shook out. Not shaked out. We went to school, Ralph, didn't we? We went to school. All right, so let's just kind of roll through this. Ralph's going to star your comments if you have questions, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. Also, if you like the little pullover hoodie, little shoody action that we're rocking tonight, check out 32 Degrees. Not a sponsor yet, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to roll with it. Aaron Holland says, "Am I tripping or the audio bugged for a sec?" Ralph, was that me? Did you get that or no? Ralph says no. Maybe it's you, Aaron. I don't know. Okay, so we all knew this beforehand. There were games planned away in advance. You link up there week 1 against Florida State. And then we're going to talk about kind of in sections. There's 12 games, and what I want to do is I want to look at it in terms of how the bye weeks go. You have 3 bye weeks. You're going to play a game on you're going to play a game there against at Virginia Tech, okay, on October 26th. So the Saturday before Halloween. You're going to have off on November 2nd. And then you're going to play against Miami on the 9th, and then you're going to be off again on the 16th. That is weird. Like, I'd have to go back and look at like scheduling ones. Like, I don't know how long ago you could go back into the war chest and kind of look at when Georgia Tech has had essentially 2 bye weeks in the span of 3 weeks and has played one game from November 2nd to November 21st heading into that weekend. You do get a Thursday game, and then you get like an extra 2 days of rest before you play clean old fashioned hate there the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So how we're going to break this down is I'm going to take it essentially the games before the bye week. So we're going to go Florida State, Georgia State, Syracuse, VMI, Louisville. We're going to go use that 28th bye week. And if you're paying attention at home or you're watching afterwards, that's fine. We would appreciate you to do that because the graphic that Georgia Tech put out doesn't really help us here. So, Ralph, we're going to scratch that. We're not even going to use it. Don't worry about it. I appreciate you finding that, though. Then we're going to go Duke, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech. Well, then we'll go the final 3, Miami, NC State, and Georgia. All right, so let's start with, this schedule. You get to play week 0, which is going to be, I think, really, really good. Dr. Bob asked a great question on Monday night's show about the brand value that you can get from playing this game. And if you win it, I think there's a major upside to that. Major upside on being able to, kind of play that. So week 0 against Florida State. What does that bring you? Look, we don't know Florida State's roster situation. We know that they're going to have DJ Uiagalelei starting at quarterback. They're going to have some pieces as well. We're going to do some in-depth previews, as we get through spring ball and get a better gauge on the roster. Here's what I will tell you when you go play that game in Dublin, Ireland. Mike Norvell is going to have this team ready, and it's going to be a physical football game. I don't know the personnel. I think they have questions that need to be answered, like people have pointed out in our Discord. I don't know if they're going to be a top 5 team, a top 10 team, top 15, top 20 team. I can't tell you that. No one can. Anyone who tries to tell you that they know what Florida State is going to be in August, they're either smoking the good stuff, which I think Ralph played around with at times, but they're either smoking the good stuff and I can see Ralph in the background, by the way, or they are drinking from the fountain of Kool-Aid that, lies somewhere on the campus. You don't know. Like nobody can sit here and know this. It is really up to interpretation. I think the one things that we can feel comfortable about saying, though, is Florida State is going to present a challenge both physically and coaching-wise. You have a good coach in Mike Norvell, and you also have, a still very, very talented roster. Yes, they have to replace a lot, but you're going to walk into a game that's going to be very, very physical, and all eyes are going to be on this game. So that's where I sit with this. It's going to be a physical football game. I'm not going to tell you anything else on that. Here we go. You ready for this, Ralph? We're going to roll into week 1, and you're going to have to get back from Ireland. And in week 1, you're taking on Georgia State. This is a home game. I will say this now. Feel free to clip it. Feel free to do what you want. Take it to social media. Send it to your auntie. Send it to your uncle. Whatever you want to do. Hear me on this. Just make sure you get the full part here. Some people won't, and that's fine. That's their decision. Coming back home and playing Georgia State is a trap game. It's a trap game. I just said that, and people said, we should be able to beat Georgia State. That's a fact. We should be, Georgia State's not nearly as good as us. That should be true. We have no business losing to a team like Georgia State. That's true. All 3 things are true. So you're sitting there saying, well, why is this guy sitting here saying that this is a trap game? This is a trap game because you are going across the pond of the Atlantic Ocean to go play a football game, and you're coming back. I don't care if you stay in Ireland, and there's been talk, like Mike Norvell has come out and said that, and Ralph, I don't know who Florida State plays, in week 1 or what their situation is. Maybe you can look at that. I know you had that ACC-wide schedule pulled up there for your personal viewing. But Florida State, from what Mike Norvell has said publicly, is going to plan on staying in Ireland for a day or two to kind of get their feet and then go back. I don't know what their schedule is. I don't know how you schedule the practice out. That's going to be a testament to Brent Key and how he uses the CEO hat to kind of turn, and Ralph says Boston College. Is that a home game or a road game? They got to go to Boston College, Ralph, or are they going to go thumbs up for home, thumbs down for away? Thumbs up. So they're going to go back to Tallahassee. That's good for them at least. And it's good for Georgia Tech. They get to come back to Atlanta. But you're playing Georgia State. The fact of is it doesn't matter how talented Georgia State is coming into the season. The jokes, whatever you want to play about it, your former backup quarterback is most likely going to be their starter rolling into the season. Yeah, like I understand it. I get it. It's a funny joke. Haha, whatever. This is a definition of a trap game because of the circumstances around it. You're traveling literally across countries to get back and then kind of get settled in. You're not mentioning potential, the wear and tear of the physical game that we've mentioned you're going to be playing against Florida State, but just the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what the opponent was. I don't even care if it was VMI, like in that spot. That's just hard to play against. And if you're not sitting there and saying, like, you can look at it through gold-colored glasses if you would like and say, well, yeah, we shouldn't win that. And like you might win that game 41-17, okay? And that's fine. And there might not be a worry about it. But what I'm telling you is that's like what the definition of a trap game looks like. That's what Vegas would say a definition of a trap game looks like. That's what any person that's not wearing gold and white would say a definition of a trap game is. If you choose to not, acknowledge that, that's okay. And maybe you want to, come back in the comments here in 6 or 7 months and tell me, look how wrong you were. Because I'm not saying you're going to lose to Georgia State. I'm saying it's the definition of a trap game. That's exactly what it is. All right, so you play Georgia State in week 1 at home. Then, still just 2 weeks removed from going all the way to Ireland and coming back. And I think we just lost Ralph in the background. That's completely okay. He'll be back. A day or 2 weeks removed, you're going to go on the road to Syracuse. That's going to be something that is, just really, really, I think, interesting in the sense of you're going to Syracuse because, look, you're going to go play up there. It's a brand new coaching staff. They've recruited their butts off trying to turn this thing around fairly quickly. And I'll tell you this is how I feel about Syracuse just from a outwardly appearance. I hate that you have to make this is true. I hate that you have to make your two longest road trips within the first 3 weeks of the season. And one of them is just like longer than anyone else is going to have to make. So you got to go to Ireland, you come back, you have to go play Georgia State, which is the definition of a trap game like I talked about. They're going to be rare to go play you. And that's going to be another, they're going to try to take it to you and beat you. They want to do that. There's a lot of kids that feel slighted that maybe they didn't get a chance to play, for Georgia Tech or didn't get that offer for Georgia Tech that are going to want to try and beat you in Atlanta. And this is going to be big potentially for them recruiting-wise. Then you turn around, you got to get back on a plane and go back to Syracuse. It's kind of a tricky way to navigate the schedule because you're going to go up to Syracuse and you face a team that, 2 weeks in, what do you know about them? I mean, that's going to be something too, because they're going to have just played a home game against Ohio and they're going to have a bye week coming the week after you. So the game at Syracuse is going to be interesting. I think Fran Brown is a heck of a recruiter. We're going to see what he's like as a head coach. I think that they have a solid staff. But much like Georgia Tech last year, is going to have a lot of new faces and some first-time guys at this level and doing what they're going to be doing. And you kind of have to see what they roll into there in week 3. You don't know. Are you going to be exhausted? Are you going to be tired? Could you be banged up? All the above could be that. So I don't necessarily think that just by the virtue of travel, all the travel you're going to have to do, and the virtue of you really don't know what Syracuse is going to be, which could be, hey, we're catching a team that, early in the season doesn't have an identity or you're catching a team that doesn't have an identity. You don't know. It can be either or. That's kind of where Georgia Tech was this past year of no one really knew what they were going to be. And I think they caught some teams by surprise, especially week 1 against Louisville with what they were able to do offensively. So you do that. You go to Syracuse. We roll into week 3. This is the 4th straight game for Georgia Tech. They're going to play VMI. Shout out VMI. If you've ever been there, beautiful little town right there. And the Keydats going to be coming down. That's the FCS game. Shout out to the SoCon. You should obviously be able to win this game. Kind of flex your muscles, get some guys some rest because you have been traveling 2 out of the first 3 weeks of the season. They've been your longest road trips the entire season, and that's a potential to get some rest and get ready for what's going to be a pivotal next game on the road to Louisville. So you go to Louisville there in week number 4. It's game number 5 of the season, and so you're talking about what Louisville brings back. Look, I tried to say this last year, and people got offended, which is fine, but Louisville was not going to be a bad team regardless of the schedule that they played. They were not just a good team because of the schedule that they played. Were they a double-digit win team? Probably not, but this is a team that could have won 8 to 9 games, I feel like, regardless of the schedule. Jeff Brom's a really, really good coach, and I talked about that in the preview this last year, that Jeff Brom is a really, really good in-game football coach, and people have to respect that. And maybe some of you have, and maybe some of you will understand that going up to there, which you imagine has the potential to be a night game, that place has a renewed sense of excitement. And as excited as Tech fans are about football, going on the road, up to Louisville, a potential night kickoff there. I mean, if Georgia Tech's a 3-1 by that moment, I don't know who Louisville. I'm going to look real quick what Louisville's schedule up until that point is. I mean, Louisville will play Austin Peay and Jacksonville State, and then they'll have a bye week, and then they'll go into Georgia Tech. I mean, they're going to be rested, and they'll probably be 2-0. And you feel pretty good about, if you're Louisville, welcoming a team in, which should be a tightly contested football game. I think that has potential to be a really good football game, much like it was this past year in Mercedes-Benz. So, when you look at the first 5 games, I just don't like the travel in between from weeks 1 to 3. I think that could spell, that's going to be a challenge for the coaching staff. And then you have to go on the road to Louisville, and that's not an easy place to play. And I think that's a program that is trying to not let year 1 under Jeff Brom be a fluke. Like we said, we're not talking personnel. We're not giving score predictions here. We're just talking a sense of, who's on the coaching staff and who is trying to build off of a successful year 1. Georgia Tech's in the same situation. Louisville's going to have some questions to answer up front defensively. But look, Jeff Brom's a good football coach, and that's going to be a tough one. So Georgia Tech rolls into week number 6, and they finally get a bye week, which is hilarious. I'm sorry, week number 5, they get the bye week. Week 6, they head back. They get to stay home, which is really nice, and they take on Duke. The initial reaction I saw from folks is, well, we should beat Duke. Duke should be a win. Duke should be a win. And you might be right. Like, that's a game that you should and that you definitely could win. You beat them last time that they played in your house. And look, they obviously have a coaching change. Manny Diaz, I mean, Duke's going to have a decent idea by the month of October. They'll have, kind of a little bit of time to figure out who they are. And you kind of look at it too, like they're playing Elon. They're going to go on the road to Northwestern, home against UConn, at Middle Tennessee State. And then their homecoming games the week before against North Carolina. So, you could see a team that maybe has 1 loss. Maybe they have 2. I don't know. But it's just another team that I think is even like Manny. The same folks that think Manny Diaz is a bad football coach is also. Manny Diaz is not a bad football coach. I think that's going to be a team that is hungry, and a Duke team that is going to be another fun matchup inside Bobby Dodd. Maybe that's another potential night game. I don't think Duke's going to be absolutely just horrendous, but once again, it's another team coming into your stadium. You get them at home, you got to feel good about your chances, and you have to protect home field at Bobby Dodd and make that a tough place to play if you are Georgia Tech. This next one, Ralph, is going to get a lot of chuckles and a lot of comments, and I'm sure a lot of white and gold fans up at Kennan Memorial Stadium there in Chapel Hill, as Georgia Tech is going to head on the road to play North Carolina, who they have beaten the last 3 years. And obviously, it's no secret that your former head coach is now the defensive coordinator up there. This is what I'll say about this. No, it's not been, for North Carolina, it has not been a lack of talent for them. It has just been, I think, a lack of execution and a lack of some cohesive play of full 4 quarters. As one of the reasons they've underachieved over the past 3 or 4 years. I think this is still a program that has, the star pointing up in terms of what they want to do, but they have a lot of question marks. And, no more Drake May in the fold. That's back-to-back, NFL quarterbacks. Georgia Tech has beaten them when they had back-to-back NFL quarterbacks. What does it look like when you get into October 12th? At this point, you're at midpoint of the season. You feel like you know what your identity is going to be. I'll say this. I don't know what's going to happen in that game. I think North Carolina's got some talent on the roster. I just also will tell you this. Just because you've beat them the past 3 years doesn't mean that you're going to beat them again. And I think that the people who predicted or said that the reason Georgia Tech beat North Carolina this past year is because, well, we just beat them. We have their number. That's a fun talking point on social media, but the reason is because Georgia Tech out-executed them. And you're going to have to go out-execute North Carolina at their place like you did 2 years ago. And, just win a football game that I think is going to be another potentially good football game. You roll to October 19th. This is week number 8. Reminder, you're sitting, you come back home. I don't remember if this is the last game of the Mayhem at Mercedes or whatever it was called. This is where I would say you kind of roll with this. You're going to play Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to have Riley Leonard. And I think Notre Dame is going to be another solid football team. It's, I imagine you roll into that game potentially. If you had to put a number on it right now, you roll into it as an underdog. But look, Notre Dame's going to be coming down to Atlanta playing inside Mercedes-Benz. And that's going to be a fun one. The last time, and I wanted to get this little statistic correct here, the last time that Georgia Tech played in Mercedes-Benz, and it was not a part of the Chick-fil-A or Aflac kickoff, it was that thrashing against North Carolina a couple years ago. So we're going to see, we're going to see how this kind of rolls with, Notre Dame and what that team is going to be. But I just think it's going to be a team that regardless of record, Marcus Freeman is a quality football coach, and they're going to have, potentially if Riley Leonard's healthy for that game, it's going to be another situation of you're facing a quality opponent and a really good football team. So there you go. All right, we roll into the last one before the next bye week, and it's at Virginia Tech, which good friend Josh Pate labeled as one of the rising programs entering 2024. Virginia Tech was able to find some things that worked for them down the stretch of the season. And I'll just tell you this, folks. If they are excited and they've got, even if they're not very good, but if they're solid and they're a good program, that's another one going up to Lane Stadium. That's a tough place to play. And look, it's not making an excuse. It's just saying that's a tough place to play. And so I think that's another chance for Georgia Tech to go on the road and have to beat a quality opponent in their house. Going to be very interesting to watch how that happens, going on the road to Virginia Tech. You then get another bye week, and then you play a game on November the 9th where you're going to take on Miami inside Bobby Dodd. Who is Miami? What is Miami? This is what I'll tell you about Miami. Mario Cristobal can recruit his butt off. He is a very, very good recruiter. Can they coach these kids up enough, and can they have enough good coaching to execute on the field to take advantage of that talent? I think that's what keeps them in the conversation, every single year of just kind of being that program that, hey, they could take off, or they could be one of the top 2 programs in the ACC. But look, once again, defend home turf. You lost to them last time you played them inside Bobby Dodd, kind of an ugly football game there 2 years ago. And so we'll see. We'll see how that game rolls against Miami. You then get another bye week. And I know we have some students that watch the show, and so would love your input here. Georgia Tech gets the 3 bye weeks, okay? And at first glance, you're like, that's weird. It's kind of weird. But I think in a way that you could look at this and say, when these students, and I've just talking with some people and some parents, these students, especially Georgia Tech, like this is kind of when you start to get into exam prep. And we all know that at Georgia Tech, it's different than kind of, a lot of other places across the country. There's probably, you could count on both your hands the amount of programs that have that much rigor in a sense of, needing to really focus on exams. And so maybe this bye week for November 16th, before you kind of head into what could be potentially 2 ranked matchups, I feel like at least 1 ranked matchup, you get rest and recovery, but you also get this chance to give a little bit of a breather to kind of focus on their studies. I think that's something that kind of hurt them a little bit last year, just from talking with folks about some of the course load these guys are taking. And so maybe that's a benefit of having essentially 2 off weeks from November on, and one of them leading up into the week of, into that North Carolina State game, which is where we take us here. North Carolina State, a Thursday night contest. Once again, you're going to be facing Ralph. I believe it's Grayson McCall is the quarterback there for North Carolina State. You would imagine that, if he's having a good season, he'll still be the quarterback in that situation. This is another game where you play North Carolina State at Bobby Dodd Stadium, and I think I think it's just going to be another potential quality opponent. And, we'll just kind of roll through. Obviously, everyone knows clean old-fashioned hate there. You're going to Sanford Stadium in Athens there on November the 30th, and the ACC title game is December 7th. So we talk about this, and Ralph, you can just throw up kind of that instant reaction or whichever banner you want to throw up there as we kind of round this whole conversation out. I mean, I've been I think I said this on the show. So this is what I said. I said the other day on the show, I look at this schedule, and Brent Key does not like this word. And so, but I'm going to use it because I'm not a coach and I'm not affiliated with the program, so it's fine. There's 2 games on this schedule that you should be able to pencil in. If you are as good as you think you are, 2 games. It's home against Georgia State, and then it is home against VMI. Those are pencil-in games. Now, we had a vast conversation because some people decided to take exactly what I just said and say, Bryce only has confidence for us to win 2 games. Well, if you listened to the context around the show instead of firing it off into your group as soon as you could about, well, let's just crap on what people are trying to say about our program that nobody talks about, but people choose to take time out of their day to talk about. If you chose to do that, this is what you would have been able to hear. When I say pencil in games, I'm talking about the ability to roll the ball out there and say, we're going to win. Those 2 games should be Georgia State and VMI. And the reason for me, and look, it's a long way from getting to a record prediction. It is a long, vast way from getting to a who's on what roster, who has depth. I mean, massive. We have no clue what's going to happen, folks, in the next week, much less 7, 8, 9 months from now. What I will say to this is that going off of the team that we think we're going to see and the program we're going to see, who I mentioned 2 years ago had to learn how to win. I think this year they learned how to win in a sense, and now they have to learn to win consistently. The only 2, I only have 100% confidence where if you put a gun to my head and said, Bryce, we're going to pull the trigger, you have to pick 2 games. It's Georgia State VMI. Like, you have to pick games that you feel like Georgia Tech's going to win. If they don't, you're dead. Like, you're dead. Like that type of thing. Or they point a gun at Ralph. Okay? And I like Ralph, and I care about Ralph. And they said, you pick the games that Georgia Tech's going to definitely win. It doesn't matter if it's 1 or 10 or 12 or 47. But you pick them, and that's what you have to roll with. And Ralph's life's on the line. Ralph, am I crazy for saying Georgia State and VMI? Like, that's as far and as comfortable as I feel about saying 100 without a shadow of a doubt they're going to win those football games. That's where I'd hedge my bets towards. So, so all of this to say is, and Ralph says he is lying. He would throw me away as fast as possible. People who, I appreciate you putting that, Ralph, because people who are listening to the podcast after the fact, which is a good number of people, have no clue what I'm talking about. And that's fine. But what I'm trying to say here is that I have an expectation from somewhere maybe between 6 to 8 wins for Georgia Tech next season. That's where I feel like they should be. I'm just telling you, you're going to have to win some games that are toss-up or going to be competitive, whether you view that as that, and or probably upset some people you're not supposed to beat. By Vegas standards, not your own standards, by Vegas's standards. Because in our own standards, we're going to want to say, okay, because I'll tell you this, and this is the thing about being a fan, because we're going to do this all summer long, and I'm encouraging you. And I said this in Discord. I feel like we have people on this side of the aisle who are the internal, optimist, and I feel like we have people on the other side that are pessimist. And I want to try to bring you together so we can have good conversation and we can have actual real conversation that makes sense and is logical. So if you're going to have the argument that Georgia Tech is going to be better, okay, if that's what you're going to say, if you're going to say, well, Georgia Tech's going to be better, I mean, the offense can improve and the defense can't be much worse. Fair argument. I'm not going to argue with you there. That is a valid argument. What I will sit here and tell you is that law or that idea of thinking, you also have to allow that to be applied to other teams. So like a team like Florida State, yeah, they lost a lot, But like, what if, and just play the game, and we're not putting anything in pen here. Nothing's in Sharpie. We're writing in number 2. Raph, we're even writing in daggum 0.5 lead pencil. That's how special we think we are. Not that 0.7 stuff, 0.5. What if Florida State, what they have waiting in the wings, is pretty dang good and is top 15 worthy and top 12 worthy? What if you go on the road to Syracuse and Fran Brown has galvanized a program and they're excited and they view that as a chance to stake their claim in the ACC, much like you did last year when you played games? What if you go on the road to Louisville and their stars rising and Jeff Brom has something rolling there? What if Manny Diaz isn't as bad of a coach as people like to make out that he is? What if you go to North Carolina and they find a defense and you kind of realize that your head coach, who might not have gotten the job done as a CEO, is a pretty good defensive coordinator and a really good one at that? What if? What if you play Notre Dame and Riley Leonard is, up for her, Davy O'Brien Award? What if you go on the road to Virginia Tech and they figured it out? Miami, what if that has finally turned around and all the talent is being developed and executing? What if Grayson McCall is really, really good at the Power 5 level? And then, the least likely of them all, or the least, I should say, surprising of them would be what if Georgia is still one of the best programs in the country? If you're going to apply the same logic is what I'm trying to get at, and that was a long way to get it. If you're going to apply the same logic to, Georgia Tech can be improved, you have to be willing to apply the same positive outlook to other teams. And look, I'll do vice versa. Like, if you also think that, Notre Dame's going to regress a little bit, Syracuse has tons of question marks, like, what do you think, like, all these programs are doing right now? Like, it's just through this lens of, let me apply this to one side of the argument, but I'm not going to apply it to the other. And so that's where we sit with this. And I think that this schedule I'll say this, I think it's manageable. I think it's, for year 2.5, if you want to say, under Brent Key, year 2, you should be able to win football games, against the Syracuses, the Louisvilles, the Dukes, North Carolinas, the Virginia Techs, the Miamis, the NC States. Like, you want to talk about best case scenario? I think it could be in the realm of, we're talking about best case scenario. It could be in the realm of a 9-3, 10-2 season. Like, that's not completely out of the question of some of the things. And you want, like, I'll even lean to the positives. Yeah, your offense could be better. It could be way more consistent. This team could be more consistent. Tyler Santucci, which we're going to do an episode next week talking about, what this defense would look like. Maybe he works some magic, and maybe you are able to fill a front seven that needs to be rebuilt and needs some playmakers desperately up there. So maybe you're able to do those things. But if you're applying that law and that idea of logic to, our defense can't get any worse, and we got to play fair on both sides of the aisle here. We can't just look at it when it values our point and then not do it for the other side. So I think that this schedule is manageable. I choose to sit here on January, and I even said this in the last show, and it's still just, it's crazy what people would like to do when they have an agenda, but it is what it is. I sit here on January 24th at 8:09 Central, 9:09 Eastern. And I still, for what I know currently about the Georgia Tech program, I feel absolutely 110% confident that you should beat Georgia State and VMI. Outside of that, do I think that you can beat Duke? Yeah, like 70% chance you should be able to beat Duke. But I'm talking about 100% and 110% confidence. And that got blown out of proportion, and it's not surprising. And not surprising at all. So I think it's a manageable schedule. I think that you, at some point, too, we talk about, the difficulty of schedules. You look, at some point, it's not going to matter. Like, you're going to have to play a hard schedule if you're not going to win the ACC title, because you need that strength of schedule to be able to get into a 12-team playoff, to be able to, get one of those at-large bids. If that's the ultimate goal for Georgia Tech to do, you got to go beat Florida State and Ireland. Make a claim early. Stake your claim early that says, hey, we're not sitting status quo. This offense is really, really good. This is a top 15 offense. And, man, our defense is really good. And we understand what we're doing. And Tyler Santucci was a home run hire. And if you don't want people to look at Georgia teams, then go beat Bowling Green. Go beat the Citadel, Northern Illinois. Take care of business where it needs to be taken care of. I know it's different regimes, but what I'm saying is don't let these outside influences that are very real affect you. And I think that's what we could see happen. I think it's absolutely what we could see happen. You know, it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of watch how this season plays out because it's a manageable schedule. There are probably, I'll say there's one game where I feel like I've got a pretty good feeling of where it could go, and it might be the last game of the season just because I think that program is among the elite of the elites, and it's going to, it's not completely unwinnable to go beat Georgia in Athens. It is just going to be very, very hard. It's going to be one of the toughest challenges you have. Hear me out when I said that. It's not an unwinnable football game. You showed that at home last year. Going on the road up there is going to present some challenges. As it would anybody, and that's not an indictment on Tech. It's just it's that. So I think that it's really, really interesting to kind of see where this schedule ends up. Look, there's gonna be a lot that changes. By the time that you get to Duke, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, what are those teams, or what are they being identified as? So we'll see. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Some news and notes about this schedule, which is absolutely hilarious. Did you know that Georgia Tech VMI is an old conference rivalry for a lot of maybe the elder statesmen of the Georgia Tech fan base? Georgia Tech has played VMI back when they played a lot, actually. The Keydets, when they were both members of the Southern Conference from 1924 to 1932. 1924 was when VMI joined. 32 was when Georgia Tech left. They have met a total of 15 times, and this will be their first meeting since 1988, where Georgia Tech leads this all-time series 14-1. Going to be very, very fun. And for folks that maybe are wondering why, real quick, as we kind of finish up the show and the news and notes, are kind of wondering why, why does Georgia Tech have 3 bye weeks? Great job from the SID department at Georgia Tech to kind of lay that out for us. They said Georgia Tech has 3 open weeks in the regular season schedule. All of college football has at least 2 due to the 14 Saturdays being on the calendar from Labor Day weekend to Thanksgiving this year instead of 13. Additionally, Georgia Tech gets that third one because of the Week 0 game in Ireland. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I absolutely love this. And I think it's, just a little nugget for us to kind of put in a feather in the cap as we kind of talk about college football here in the months of January. It's going to be a lot of fun to kind of watch how these programs, change, how betting lines change, how rosters change, even to a certain extent, coaching staffs still change. I think that's going to be very, very interesting to watch. So don't put anything in pen quite yet. But man, just, enjoy yourself. Let's have great fodder about it. But let's also just kind of let's just try at least to have good conversation and be realistic about what we're talking about here. I love fans. They're called fanatics for a reason. But I've already seen, like, you're going to have the people that say we're going 10-2, 11-1, 12-0, or 15-0. And then you're going to have people that say we're going 3-9, 4-8, stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of fun. So, Ralph, let's get to a couple comments here before we get out of here. I believe we have like 7 or 8 starred, and I'll address those and we'll leave. Rambling on with Zach Jones says, we have the potential to start the season off 4-0. Agreed. Even if FSU beats us, a probable 3-1 start is good. Middle of the season, end of the season depends on how good Miami and NC State is. Also depends on yourself. What type of roster that you have, what's your health like. I mean, look, injuries are bad breaks for some people and, great breaks for other teams. So it's going to be interesting to watch. Ramblin says way too early prediction is 8-4, 9-3 at best, 6-6 at the worst. I'm not going to put a record on it, but I think that's around where I would sit. I said between the 6 and 8 win is where I felt comfortable right now, but there's still a long way to go in this whole process that we'll have to see. Let's go to the next one. Key to success says 2024 ACC championship appearance, calling it now. Hey, if it's happening, we might have to make the trip to Charlotte. That's for sure. David says 9-3, 8-4 with a 7-5 being our floor. Nothing wrong with great expectations there, David. We just keep moving along. Ralph, I'll just read them and you go. Keita says, this is Tech, Bryce. We're going to beat FSU and lose to VMI. Like King said, it's Tech-like. Man, that would be a very Georgia Tech thing like to do, wouldn't it? Go beat FSU, be 3-0, and then lose to VMI. That'd be really frustrating. But hilarious in a weird sense. 6-6 against the schedule with 11 teams that made bowl games the year before would be respectable. Dr. Bob, I think, and someone told me this, they were unnamed in the Discord, but they messaged me and they said, amidst all of the crazy chatter that we have, you are one of the most level-headed. And I think myself, Ralph, and Will would agree with that as well. But it's like I said, success is not linear, folks. And what to see. 6-6 against scheduled 11 teams that made the bowl games the year before would be respectable. At some point, you do have to start winning those games. That would be the one caveat I would say to your argument here, but I do agree with you overall. All right, keep rolling here. Brad Morrell. Appreciate you, Brad. When you're a good team, you don't shy away from anyone. When you're a wannabe, you want to sneak in under the radar. Very well said, Brad, and I do agree with you there as well. Looks like we got a couple more here from Dr. Bob and then Brad again. Dr. Bob says, the old SoCon, and Dr. Bob, I appreciate you for having the capitalization correct in the Southern Conference. I do appreciate that. A mega conference that has had over 34 former full members. No conference has undergone more change over the years. And you know what? They're still super relevant in a really good FCS conference, putting in around 2 to 3 teams a year over the past 3 or 4 years. So that's been really fun to watch the Southern Conference. And then the final one from Brad Morrell. The offense will likely take a step back, but if the defense can take a bigger step forward than the offense steps back, it's a positive. I agree with you, Brad. 110% agree with you. I think it's a very, very, very good point that you just made right there. Well, look, we appreciate you tuning in. A little bit longer show tonight as we kind of talk about this schedule. I wanted to get kind of my thoughts on there about this. We're not making predictions. I sat there and said to you, I think 6 to 8 wins, regular season wins is where you need to sit. But that's on January. Like, we're not going to know. No one's putting that in pen. No one's screaming from the rooftops, I think Georgia Tech's going to win 2 games. It's an opinion, and you're allowed to have the opinion. I just ask, if we bring opinions to the table, let's have some information to back those up. That creates educated conversation, which is what we're all about here on the Crowded Booth. He's Ralph Leary in the background. We appreciate it. Give claps in the chat there to Ralph Leary for toughing it out. Computer crashed. It's been 40 minutes. We've been live here. He's killing it. But if you like college football content, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel. Maybe you're a Georgia Tech fan, but you want to know more. You want to have a place. Well, if you enjoy what we do here, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button as well. We would love to have you on board. Braves baseball coming very, very soon. We're going to, we have a playlist and a kind of a segment of Inside the Booth, which is where I go one-on-one with some of the players and different people that we're really going to be diving into this spring. And man, I cannot wait for some of the guests that we're going to have on tap here very, very soon. So would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel, completely free for you to do. Check us out at the Crowded Booth on all social media platforms and thecrowdedbooth.com, where you can do that as well. And then don't forget, great comment there, Brad. Bees Ball. Man, Georgia Tech baseball and Danny Hall, they start in about 3 weeks, support all of Tech sports. Yeah, it's going to be a interesting season on tap for Georgia Tech baseball here in 2024. My name is Bryce Koon, Ralph Leary in the background. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for making Swarm Talk and Crowded Booth a part of your day. Whether you're listening to us on Spotify after the fact, whether you're listening to us on radio with our partners at WQEE throughout West Georgia, throughout East Alabama, we appreciate that as well. And then obviously the YouTube channel where a lot of this magic happens and you get to kind of see what we do. I will catch you next time. Stay tuned to the channel, set up those notifications so you know when we go live next and we post our latest content. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. My name is Bryce Koon. This is Swarm Talk, brought to you by the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.